Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. If this is your first time joining the Weekly Juice, welcome. During our shows, we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors to spread knowledge, advice, and actionable tactics to help others in the pursuit of financial freedom. We discuss successes, failures, systems, motivation, experiences, and key lessons that they've learned along the way. So tune in every Wednesday and get your weekly juice.
I love that, man.
Nice. Well, today, honestly, phenomenal episode. I know we say that.
We do say that every episode. We say it's phenomenal, but this one was different. It was not our normal.
That shit hit different.
It was not our normal episode in terms of like just the flow of it. And we talked about something that honestly, Ryan and I are not very well equipped on. Like we don't know a lot about note investing. But let me tell you who does know a lot about note investing. Scott Carson.
Amazing.
Dude's
Okay. Entrepreneur, real estate investor, podcast and radio host, but also like literally defines the word connoisseur for note investing.
Yep.
He knows every single thing about it. He wrote a book about it. He has a podcast about it. He has a blog about it. And I think he almost 15 billion in assets he's purchased.
I don't know if that's the number, but he's over 1,000 deals he's purchased. And a lot of people might be thinking, I don't even know what note investing is. It sounds weird. I don't like that was me. I was like, I'm not really into it. And then after he explains it, I'm like, he's the bank. Like this guy is literally the bank, and he essentially helps people not foreclose on their property, and he makes residual income from it. Like you guys got to listen to this one. It was really good, and it kind of shifted. I don't think that I'm necessarily going to dive all the way into note investing, but it's something I'm certainly interested in. So it may be your real estate niche.
Exactly. We always talk about buy and hold, and that's like I guess a common theme in our podcast. This one is just a different avenue and way to invest. And he says it's not for everybody, but he walks through the steps essentially on how to get started. If this is something that you're interested in, it's a way to increase your passive income monthly. You have to obviously set up systems just as you would a rental business, but he's invested in rentals and apartments, in fix and flips, a bunch of different things. And he said, hey, this is my niche. And it's not a huge market for it. Or there is a huge market for it, but not a lot of people are doing it.
Exactly. And he's been doing it for 20 years. This is the guy who went through the Great Recession, owned real estate, kind of got turned upside down and had to reinvent himself. And my God, did he reinvent himself? Like we should just.
So Scott, if you could kind of just give a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do professionally.
Sure. My name is Scott Carson. I'm known across the country as the Note Guy. The last 12 years, I've been focused on the niche of buying distressed mortgages in the note space by buying debt on residential commercial properties and working to try to keep the borrowers in place if we can by either modifying or doing trial payment plans with the borrowers. If they won't work with us, we'll go to one other liquidation strategy before we have to go to foreclosure. But that's what I do, man. I call Austin, Texas home, hook 'em horns. We talked beforehand. I am a Cowboys fan, but unfortunately we're kind of crying in our beer.
We almost shut the podcast off right there, but we
have listeners from all over. It's all good. Let's
That's right. So, but yeah, that's what I do. I got into real estate back in 2002 after, I graduated college, was a big fan of Flip This House and, all the reality non-real shows out there. Bought a couple of investment properties after we bought our primary. And then the market switched here in Austin and lost my ass. I got laid off at the same time. So I was trying to make, 3 first mortgages and 3 second mortgages on a private school teacher salary. So that didn't go very far.
Wow.
And I was able to short sell off the 2 investment properties, keep our primary, lick my wounds for about 2 years. Got into banking and was banking with JP Morgan Chase as a banker and opened about 20 different branches. And then in 2004, a buddy of mine was starting a mortgage company with another investor and his spouse, and they were traveling the country teaching creative financing and fix and flip strategies, every other weekend. They were part of the Ron LeGrand network out there back in the day. And so I said, this is what I want to do. So from 2004 to 2008, while we were running the mortgage company, just making a ton of money, doing mortgages for investors. I was basically at a 4-year apprenticeship where I learned that creative financing side, how to buy debt at a discount, how to work it out. And then when the music stopped with the Great Recession in 2008, and I left the origination side and just started dialing for dollars, calling banks and asset managers and tracking down whether it was a one-off mortgage on a mobile home or a portfolio of like 300 assets on commercial properties from Capital One. That's what I started doing and sharing my journey on Facebook Lives and blogs. And in 2010, I'd gone through a divorce and stopped, was on my own. And I said, well, I'm a big baseball fan. I was getting ready to start a baseball season. So I kind of planned this mythical journey to travel the country and go to all 30 parks. And in divine intervention, I had about 6 to 7 different investment clubs, including one there in Philadelphia, reach out to me and say, hey, we see your blogs, we see your articles that you're sharing. Would you like to come speak to our group? I'm like, yeah, sure. When do you want me?
That's how it works.
Yeah,
that's how it works. And those 7 real estate clubs, when they wanted me to come, all lined up when I would have been in that town to see a ball game. And so I was like, okay, perfect, exactly. So sold everything I owned in Austin, Texas, the house, had 2 weekends worth of garage sales, sold everything except my dog and my truck and some clothes, and jumped in. And what I thought would be 30 weeks turned in over 3.5, 4 years of traveling basically nonstop. And so really kind of built a grassroots kind of following, not only buying notes, but showing others how to do what I do. And, flash forward now, 2014, I was the Note Educator of the Year. I've bought over $1 billion in distressed debt, closed on thousands of deals, and getting very excited at what the new year holds with everything going on with the craziness of COVID and defaults and, people being laid off of work and businesses closing. And so I think we're no matter what type of real estate, if you're hanging around and focus on things, I think this next year is going to be an opportunity of a lifetime. So
it's incredible. That was a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot. I was going to go ahead.
Just want to break it down. So you seem like you're on step 7 here.
70.
70. Yeah, quite possibly 80.
Yeah.
Can you just break it down and start super basic as a note? Like how does someone invest in a note? What is a note? And just work us up the ladder here.
Yep. So everybody's in the note business, whether you believe it or not. You're just on the wrong side of the payment streams. Okay. So if you've got a car payment, the student loans, house, car debt, credit cards, whatever, you're in the note business, but you're on the payment side. The idea is to be on the receivable side. Okay. So when I buy a note, that's a mortgage. So I'm buying a first mortgage is usually what I'm buying about 99% of the time. I'm buying that directly from banks and lending institutions to become the bank. Now I'm buying mortgages usually where the borrower has not made a payment and usually at least 6 months, sometimes up to 6 years. And so the bank or the lending institution that's holding this debt is willing to sell that IOU off or the receivable off at a huge discount that I can, they owe 100, but they sell it to me for 20 grand. Now I become the bank and then I make my money by reaching out to, Joe Smith and saying, hey, you've been through a country western song, you got laid off, whatever happened, talk to me. Let's try to work a situation out here to keep you in the house if you can. If not, let's go a different route. Maybe you need to deed the property over to me and walk away, or I'll give you some cash. Or if you're not going to work with me, then I get my attorneys involved and we go the foreclosure route. So basically, I'm buying a mortgage at a discount to hold on for cash flow. I don't want to own the property, even though I do end up with it quite a bit of the time. I become the bank and I make my money by modifying it or creating payment streams by working with the borrowers. Okay.
So the question that I have here, is this completely privatized in the sense that you can come up with the rate? Like, how do those rates work with when you, or else if let's say the mortgage rate's 3.2%, you can't offer 4% because they would just go to a bank? Here's what
that's okay. So forget the mortgage rate, the interest rate on the mortgage. If somebody hasn't paid their mortgage, it doesn't make a damn bit if it's 1% or 6%, right?
Right.
So I'll give you an example. So like I just bought this note a few weeks ago, borrower owed 120 grand. Their house was maybe worth 110. Okay. They hadn't paid in 9 months. Okay. The lending institution was willing to sell me that note at 50 cents as is value. Okay. So the house is worth, like I said, 110. I paid 55 grand for it. All right. I paid for the note. The borrower still owed 120 grand. Okay. Now the note was at roughly 6% interest rate. Okay. So we bought the note. We reach out to the borrower. Hey, what happened? He's laid off of work. Okay. You're 9 months behind. Could you start making your mortgage payment right now? He's like, do I have to come up with a 9 months? I'm like, no. Can you start making the payment? He's, yeah, I'm back to work. I said, okay, let's do that. Let's have you start paying your existing payment. If you pay on time for 12 months, I'll forgive that 9 months of stuff. Okay. So if we run the numbers here, he's at 6%, but I bought the note at 50 cents on the dollar, but he starts paying on time. It's like I got a 12% cash and cash return.
Yep.
Because he starts, I could drop it down. I could reduce the interest rate a little bit if I wanted to, if he's at a higher rate, or I could stair step it up. So, okay, start at 2, bump it to 3, bump it to 4. I can get really creative on what I do. I can forgive back payments. I could say, hey, can you bring some skin to the game? And so it gets really creative on that by being able to work with a borrower in some sort of fashion.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you don't care about the previous 9 months because the bank owned it then, right?
No. The bank did not. The bank owned the mortgage. I do, because that's why it's upside down. The borrower still owes that 120.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
And so that's why it's important to me. It's like, okay, you owe more than the property's worth. It's different if they have a lot of equity. Then they're going to try to fight me to stop foreclosure. But
sure,
I'm going to go like, listen, instead of you moving out and trying to rent a place, you have to put up 2 months of deposits and utilities. Take that $2,000 or $3,000. Let's put it towards what you owe. Let's keep your kids in school. Let's keep you in the house. Because if they pay on time for 12 months, at the end of 12 months, it's considered a reperforming note. I could sell that note back to the market or to other investors at like 85, 90% of the value of the house. So I made 12 months of payments, or I got 12 months of payments, plus I got another 35 to 40% on the back end. You can flip notes all day long. Heck, I could buy a note today. If I bought it cheap enough, I could flip it tomorrow for a wholesale fee. So you can wholesale notes like you can property too.
Pretty cool.
This is insane. Yeah. My brain is chugging along here trying to figure this all out. So let me just walk it back a little bit. So you purchased this for $50,000 or $55,000 from the bank. When you purchase that from them, are you done? Is the bank out and it's just you? And then the borrower's still there. The bank is gone. The bank got their 55 because now they can take that 55 and go leverage it and make up what they lost. Okay. But they're eating the rest. They're like, whatever he has.
They're taking a loss on their books. They're taking a loss on their books. Correct. But I'm not taking a loss. I'm just buying. It's like going into into a clothing store. The shirt was worth $100, but it's on the clearance rack for $50. The bank, the seller wants to get off their books. It's still a $100 shirt, right?
Now, are you going to essentially charge the person that owned the house, right? That I guess foreclosed, the borrower, excuse me. Are you going to charge them the price that they would pay monthly for the 55 just to make your 55? Are you trying to get the 110?
No, their terms stay the same. So a normal payment on say $100,000, maybe $800. That hasn't changed. I bought the debt exactly as it is. Now I will work with a borrower to see what they can afford or can't afford. And there's numbers that I'll drop it down to or adjust, but there's other things that I won't adjust. Like I'll give you an example. Say their mortgage payment was say $1,200, but rent is $900. Then I would drop it down to $900 because that's in line with the market, right? But if their mortgage payment is $900, but market rent's $1,200, I'm not going to drop the mortgage payment down because you'd be paying more out in the open market. So pay me, pay, stay, but stay in the house. It makes more sense for me because now I don't have to pay attorney fees to foreclose. And we all know that can vary state by state. Pennsylvania is a little bit longer state than others, but then I also don't have to do repairs. Somebody's living in a house, taking care of it. That's a good thing for me. So
you almost don't even care. Like, hey, if these guys can't pay, I just got a huge discount on this mortgage. I'm going to be able to fill it with other renters or potentially even. I'm
not renting the property. They're borrowers. I had to take the property back from them. I would have to foreclose.
Yep.
So then it becomes a foreclosure. I can either sell it at the auction or I could take the property back and then rent it out if I want to, sell it, at full value, owner finance the property if I want to. That's fine.
Sorry, you're the bank.
Totally do that.
I get it now. Yeah. I'm just. Yeah. It's just the cycle's crazy.
Very normal questions you're asking. Very normal questions, man.
There's certain portions of the United States where it would seem to me that these foreclosures are happening all over the place. Are there certain areas that note investing lends itself better to somebody like you than other areas?
Just about everywhere.
Yeah, right. That's what I would think.
Well, for the most part, like New York, New Jersey, like in New York, it takes you to hire an attorney, to have an attorney, to talk to an attorney. Okay. It's ridiculous. It's like over 2 years to foreclose in New York. It doesn't really make a lot of sense unless you're getting it really, really cheap. New Jersey also has a very long foreclosure time frame as well. And so when I get these lists, like, and here's the three things why I love note investing is, one, we do zero direct mail. I'm dealing directly with asset managers at banks via LinkedIn and email and phone calls. And so one source, one bank, it becomes a resource for me every month or every quarter. And so that's the beautiful thing. I may get one asset this quarter, but I may get 100 next quarter. I had a lending institution out of New York send me a list of 900 that I can cherry pick from. And the prices all across the board depend on how far behind they are, what state it's in, the value, what they owe. So there's a lot of due diligence. We have to look at the spreadsheet, but it's a numbers-based thing. I make a bid. They'll accept it or counter back. If they accept it, then we dive into deeper due diligence. We'll pull property values. We'll pull a title report. We'll make sure to have somebody drive by the property because we can't see inside if somebody's living in it. We'll look at the loan file to make sure everything's clear on the collateral and the disclosures and all the documents. We'll talk to the servicing company, the person who is, the company that's been calling the borrower trying to get them to pay. Were they friendly? Did they tell them to F off? Do they want to try to do a loan mod? Do they want to try to do a short sale? So we evaluate the borrower really more so than the property. The property is important. I don't want to buy a note on a property that I wouldn't want to end up owning. Sure. Or it's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? But that's the thing is we see deals 6 to 12 months ahead of most investors because we see it well before the foreclosure auction. We're not spending a lot of money on the upfront marketing side besides just dollar for dollars or emails. And then the discounts are a lot better for us because we're taking on kind of the problem children of the bank. And we make our money and kind of turning lemons into lemonade, if that makes sense.
One of the major benefits or the selling point for people to get into notes would be, well, the borrower still owns the house. You don't have maintenance. You don't have capital expenditures unless you end up being the owner, correct? But I guess, would you agree with the fact that in order to get into note investing, do you have to have enough cash up front to be buying these properties from the bank? Because you're not financing that property.
You can't go get a loan from a bank for a note. A hard money lender is not going to give you a loan at 70% of LTV. So you do need capital and cash or other people's money. And we finance about 95% of our purchases with OPM, other people's retirement funds, self-directed IRAs. Actually, most of the self-money and self-directed IRAs, 30% of it's usually making zero, sitting there waiting to be invested in. And then 70% of usually the rest of the money is either invested in buying notes or they've lent the money out on a note. So paper is a very popular thing for an IRA investor. And that's, we get a lot of lazy landlords that are tired of property management. We get a lot of REO, people that can't find a deal, fixer floppers that don't want to do all the rehab themselves because they don't have the time and experience. And so they'd rather buy a note, especially a performing note, which is just kind of passive cash flow, or even buying a non-performing that's occupied where we can get the borrower to start paying on time. Then it's a nice payment stream coming in on a monthly basis. Nobody ever called the bank when little Timmy flushed his rubber ducky down the toilet at 2 o'clock in the morning. They call the landlord, but they don't call the bank. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. Okay.
So say this excites someone and they're like, wow, this sounds hands off, sounds passive. I just need to have capital, which I have. How do you suggest someone gets involved?
You still got to get educated. That's the most important thing in any type of strategy. This is not, I've had fix and flippers that come in the note space and they overbid on assets because they're used to overbidding everybody else. And that's not the case. There's some states you want to avoid. Like I said, New York, New Jersey. You want to avoid Kentucky. Real estate might be a whole lot cheaper in Kentucky, but the state requires you to have $1 million bond. And that's an expensive bond to get. Some states require you to have a specific license. Like Georgia wants to be a licensed mortgage broker to buy notes there. Other states, if you're servicing company and you need to have a third-party servicing company who's handling the borrower outreach, they're mailing the statements to the borrowers, they're collecting money. If your servicer's licensed in a state to collect, then you're covered most of the time. So that's the case in about 30 different states out there, which is where we mostly buy. So you got to get educated. You got to understand it's a different mindset being a banker versus a landlord or a fix and flipper. You have to approach it from the bank side of things and realize, I'll give you an example. I had a realtor buddy of mine, he saw his listings, like making all these offers, like, whoa. I'm like, well, you're way overbidding. It's like, oh, that's be a good bid if I get that. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to end up with the property. You're buying the note, and you always assume, especially if it's occupied, that borrower shows up with money to get back on track. Not every deal is going to be a foreclosure. I've had some deals I thought, I was going to foreclose and take the property back. They turned into loan mods where the person started paying on time. Okay. And others where I thought the borrower would pay on time and they just went quiet. So we had to foreclose. So you have to evaluate every deal to basically, okay, does it make sense on both sides if they get reperforming or if we have to foreclose? Because it's bound to happen. If you buy 10 notes, you're probably going to have 3 to 4 that the borrower will start paying on time again. 3 to 4 where the borrower will just sign the property over and walk away, or they'll give you like a deed in lieu of foreclosure or cash for keys. And then remaining 4 to 6, you'll probably end up having to go the legal route and foreclose. And the foreclosure time frame is different in every state. You have to have an attorney that's licensed in that state to do it. And, it can be fast, like here in Texas. We have fast highways, fast foreclosures, 21 days, and fast executions. Everything's fast here in Texas. And then you have Florida, God's waiting room, which can take you like 9 to 18 months. Pennsylvania is about a 12-month time to foreclose, unless it's a vacant asset. So you just got to know those things. God's Florida, God's waiting room. Yeah, exactly.
So can you dive into members of your team specifically for like going in on a note deal? I know you mentioned attorneys, potential title company, like who's comprised of your team?
Very good. Great question. And note investing is a lot like being a general manager of a professional sports team. You don't see Jerry Jones out there slinging hot dogs and beers and coaching the Cowboys. He's been trying to do that for years.
He likes control.
He would if he could. Exactly. That's why he fails. All right. So I'm more of a general manager. I'm evaluating deals, finding deals, and raising capital. But the workout side of things, your most important person or most important vendor is your servicing company. And these are the people that collect payments. They're the ones that are licensed in these different states. They're the ones that are calling the borrowers 4 times a week or 4 times a month. They're the ones when they get the borrower on the phones, they're negotiating a loan mod or payment plans or strategies that you dictate to them. So servicing company is really important. You got to have realtors. Realtors, you got to know the value of these properties. You got it. So we pay realtors to either do BPOs or CMAs or drive-bys for us. If they, we pay them a flat fee to do that if we end up getting reperforming. If we do end up having to go the foreclosure route, they become the REO agent and handle that for us. You need to have a title company that's pulling. Now you're not paying for a full title report because you don't need to research the title back to when the property was created. You just need what we call basically a 2-owner report going back 2 owners, because the title was still in effect and still good when the note was created. Otherwise, the bank wouldn't have approved it. So you need a title company to review what's on title, if there's liens or judgments or other things on there that when you buy the note, you've got to know what's on there, whether you're going to negotiate down or have the borrower pay those off. Insurance, you need to have an insurance to put forced place to, the borrower is responsible for property insurance, but if they don't put it on there, you have the right to put forced place on there and charge them for that as part of that. Real estate attorneys to foreclose in every state. And then, there's other things coming on along the way. You'll have door knockers, people that will go out and maybe for $85 will knock 2 or 3 times to try to negotiate with the borrower a little bit more aggressively, I guess you could say, instead of just a phone call. We have other vendors that will, double check, title for or taxes owed, making sure taxes have been paid. We've got document people that will prepare the documents on whenever you transfer. If I'm selling the document off, there's stuff that's got to be filed to the county called an assignment of mortgage that, it just transfers. It's like if I buy a note from Chase, it gets transferred to me. And so there's got to be an assignment filed. The deed stays the same. It just, there's an assignment that shows, hey, Chase is transferring this mortgage to ABC Bank and I bought it from ABC Bank or whatever. So, there's roughly about 7 people. I call it the magnificent 7 vendors that you usually need to have. And it works out really well that way.
I'd like to go back to your why, so to speak, and what maybe got you into this and why you're doing all this. Because correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you got in the real estate investing game. Do you still own buy and holds that any properties at all, or is everything that you do notes?
So everything starts out as a note. Okay. Everything it started out in the notes for the last 8 or 9 years. I haven't bought a traditional piece of property in quite some time, unless it was part of a portfolio that I was buying, it was included. Okay. I bought a portfolio of notes and there was 4 properties that the borrowers had already signed the property back to the bank. So I got those as part of it. And then I sold them. I keep some things for rentals for a while if it makes sense. I don't like to have rentals across the country. If I'm taking a property back via foreclosure or the borrowers, if I'm going to keep it as a rental, it's got to be in Texas or Florida. Otherwise, I'm just going to sell it. The numbers make better sense for me to usually sell it, get my capital back plus all the profit, And now instead of buying one note, I can go back and double or triple buy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, Scott. I think the reason why I was asking is because candidly, the people that we talk to, for the most part, we have talked to some more seasoned investors, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are probably within their first, I'd say 10 to 20 deals, but a lot of them haven't gone through the Great Recession.
Right.
I'm wondering, as an investor, that is, I'm wondering, was that the reason? Was the Great Recession the reason that you were like, I can't afford for that to happen again? Is that why you got into the note business in general?
So there's two reasons for it. One goes back to 2003 when I was facing foreclosure in my own house. Okay. I was a deadbeat borrower. I had to do a loan mod on mine and some of my other two. So I was like, I joke, a deadbeat borrower because we were behind. So I have a lot of empathy for the people, the borrowers on these notes that I buy. Like, I'm always willing to work with them at first. Hey, we send a letter out to me. Hey, we want to work with you.
Yeah.
We've got an opportunity. Let's make it a win-win here. I can be your best friend or I can be your worst enemy. I'd rather be your friend and keep you in the house. Okay. So I have a lot of empathy going back to them. Now, what happened in 2008, part of it's got to do that I live in Austin, Texas. Austin's a very competitive market. I had about 25 rentals here in Austin. And then I had some properties that I bought at great prices. And then as the recession hit and foreclosure started wiping out all the value, I'll give you an example. Me, my dog, and my cat lived in a 5-bedroom, 4-bath, 4,400 square foot house. Just the three of
Big
us.
house.
Okay. Big house. When I bought it, I paid $180 for it. I borrowed $210 to update it, carpet and other things into it. Well, in a matter of 4 months, the value went from over 300 down to 175.
Wow.
Okay. That's not the type of flips you want. I was like,
opposite of a flip.
It is the opposite. And so I was able to I sold my rentals off and made some money on those. But my last 2 flips, I wrote big checks at closing just to be done with them. And I was licking my wounds for a while, trying to figure things out. And then I started getting these leads from reaching out to those that I used to originate for, started getting leads from. And 2 of my mentors, one of my private money lenders, had made a lot of money in the 80s during the savings and loan scandals by buying debt. He's like, oh my God, Scott, this is the best time. And then my mentor also, he's like, this is the best time. This is an opportunity. One comes around like once every 20 or 30 years to buy this debt. So I just heeded what I did. Austin, we've got a big fix and flip market. Everybody loves to wholesale. I wasn't seeing anything that made sense for me long-term. And I was like, I started seeing, okay, I can buy 10 notes in Columbus, Ohio for what I would pay for one here in Austin. And the rents there are $800 if I had to take it back. But that makes a whole lot more sense to leverage off. The mortgage payments are $400, $500 a month. I could bring in $5,000 versus, $1,200.
Yep.
And be leveraged. So if one deal goes south out of the 10, I still got 9 that are performing. And so I just started getting bigger and better deals by buying directly from the banks. I mean, I was buying, we talk about God's waiting room. I spent like 3 months in South Florida and I bought about 60 condos at like $5,000 a piece. Waterfront condos that were originally got $100,000. The bank sold me for like $5,000. And it took me a year and a half to foreclose on them, but they rebounded back to 50, 60 grand to the closing, and I was like, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah. Seriously.
And so it was just, everything was on sale. Now, I wish it would be that way here this year. We're going to see a big discount on some things. I don't think we're having as big a big discount like we did 12 years ago, but we're going to see stuff because if people haven't paid their mortgage in 9 months or 15 months, or the commercial properties have been vacant now for 6 months and nobody's renting them or businesses are closed, the banks have got to offload this debt like they had to do years ago. And so I'm excited about it. But the biggest thing is that I like helping people. I love making money, and this is one great way that I can make money and help people and to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, this is pretty incredible, and it's a little bit of a different episode for us. I guess, I don't know if you have a specific question, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your systems and how you organize your business, because you talked about the Magnificent Seven, which I like, but I'm wondering, how do you keep track of the bird dogging, of the emails? Is there a specific, I don't even know if you're personally doing that anymore, but is there a specific system that you use to I'm sure there's multiple, to keep track of everything?
So yeah, when you first start off, most people can handle on their own maybe 20 deals, maybe 20 notes. Okay. And that's if you got like 10 to 20 hours to put into it. But a lot of people, they're doing, their side hustles real estate. the most important person, I'll scream this from the top of my lungs, for anybody in real estate, the most important person you can have is an assistant. Having an assistant will make you $100,000 because they'll do all the stupid shit that you shouldn't be doing. They'll handle the phone calls to the counties. They'll handle getting things recorded for you, the reach outs and stuff like that. So there are a couple of systems we are fond of. Our servicing company has a platform that we can log into and literally look at each note, download everything. I get a report the 5th of every month, where we at in every deal, and we make adjustments from there. Some investors will use like Podio or Pipedrive to kind of track what's going on.
Yep.
Yardi is another platform that's big on the rental market that we were actually a case study, the beta tester for Yardi to help them with their note side of things, of tracking vendors and stuff like that. So it's important to have systems. I mean, I started off, it was an Excel spreadsheet and sticky notes, against the wall on dates.
That's what I'm picturing to start.
Right? That's what most people do. What's sad though, is if you're trying to save money and you have that one sticky note that says you got to pay $3,000 by this date or to avoid a tax sale, and that sticky note falls behind your desk.
It's not great.
Sure.
It happens to everybody. But that's the point where you're like, shit, okay, I'm in the note business. It's a business. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It is a business, and you're dealing with consumer debt. You're dealing with, fair debt collection practices, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. If you're originating owner finance notes, you need to be Dodd-Frank compliant. Since we buy notes, we don't have to worry about that because the note was originally Dodd-Frank compliant when it comes to owner financing. So yeah, you need to have the software. You need to have an assistant, whether there's 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week, that can kind of help you kind of go behind you and pick up the pieces for you. As I said before, I spend most of my time looking for deals and raising capital, and our podcast and stuff that we do helps us market and do both of those.
So we're realizing very quickly that there's levels to this game, and we figured out that Ryan and I are big financial independence people. So we found real estate, and we said, real estate is going to be our way to get to financial independence. And we And we found that was great. And we figured that we understand small multifamily. This is our niche. We're going to dive in. And then we talked to other people that are like, well, first of all, we're at the level one where we understand what financial independence is, because most of the people don't even know what it is, right?
Yeah.
The roundabout way of getting to my question is, I think we're good at what we do. Sell me on what is the type of personality, or what type of person do you think would be successful at note investing versus, or why they should do this versus, buy and hold small multifamily.
So it's all independent of people. I've had people, I'll make the range joke that engineers have a hard time with the note business because engineers will overanalyze everything. They got to have everything down. And it's kind of like you may be a little older, but when I was in my young teens, there was a book series called the Choose Your Own Adventure book. You know what I mean? Where you read it and you get to land at one page. Okay, if you want to go this way, go to page 7. If you want to go this other way, go to page 32. Okay. Note investing, when you buy in a non-performing note, it could be reperformer, it could be a non-performer. You may get the bar to do an assumption with somebody else. You may do a short sale. So there's a lot of moving parts in this. So people that suffer from overanalysis paralysis don't need to be in the note business.
Got it.
That's the first thing. Second thing, it all depends on how many hours a week you have to put into this. Okay. If you're not comfortable buying something sight unseen where you have a realtor drive by and pull pictures for you, then just stay in your backyard. It's not for everybody. I've done just about everything from wholesaling to fix and flips to apartments and notes. I've always said that there's a maturation or investors evolve over time. We all can start off wholesaling bird dogging, right? You go from that to maybe light rehabs, just paint and carpet. Then you go to heavier rehabs, and then you go into the commercial space, and then you go into the lending space. Well, in the note space, you're really in the lending space without originating. You're just buying somebody else's nightmare and turning it into a dream. So, not every deal we get is a deal. That's another thing. We see a lot of realtors, they'll get a list in of 300. They start to think, there's 300 deals there. I'm like, no, it's not. What's your strategy? If your strategy is that you want to leave your JOB in say a year or two, and you need $6,000 coming in, okay, notes can be a great way for you to do that in 12 months. You need roughly 12 deals bringing in $500 a month. That means you probably have to make 120 offers over the next 12 months. That means you've got to market like anything else. You've got to do with phone calls, LinkedIn. So I always tell people, what are your goals? If you like that control freak where you want to pick out paint and carpet, then fine, do that. Notes are not like that. If you would like the interaction of landlords and dealing with that to its intents, great. We get a lot of landlords that are tired of that aspect, tired of dealing with people, tired of the property management. So they come on the site because it's much more passive for them. We get a lot of landlords that are looking for more deals that they can't find on the MLS or through bandit signs. And they'll get in the note space and try to identify some banks or lending institutions that lend in that state, and they use that to kind of grow their rental portfolio. We don't see a lot of success that way if somebody's trying to do 3 or 4 things at once, because it's a strategy and it's different systems, and you can't plug and play a rental system into a note system, if that makes sense.
To that exact point, I think analyzing the numbers and analyzing deals is completely different from the rental, long-term rentals to notes. Can you dive into that and explain the differences? Yeah.
So in the fix and flip side, we've heard of MAO, right? Not mayonnaise, but maximum allowable offer, right? 65% of ARV minus repair costs or minus money costs, right? Mm-hmm. We don't go off of ARV. ARV doesn't exist in the note space because we're on as is,
There's no repairs. You're not doing, or there could be, but you're not doing.
There will be, but we never go off. It's going to be 150 when I take the property back. Well, you may never take the property back.
Right.
So it's always about as is. And one of the big things that we look at is I'll take a look at the banks give us a spreadsheet, or we call it a tape. It's a spreadsheet with all this information: FICO scores, owner's name, social security numbers, when the loan was originated, when the last paid date is, value of the property, and then we'll often have 12 or 24 months of payments. And we can see the payment stream of what they've made or didn't make. So the first thing I do is I look to see the occupancy. If it's occupied, much more likely for me to get it reperforming. If it's vacant, I usually will kill it immediately. Because if it's a vacant property, now I know I'm going to have to go in and fix it up. I'm not going to have a reperforming note. If it's been vacant longer than 6 months, the air conditioning and heating units have gone on vacation and the copper goblins have showed up. Okay. When you say you kill it, you mean this is not something that you're going to purchase? I just take it off unless it's in Florida or Texas. Yep. I like occupied assets. Okay. And then I'll take a look at, the kind of pricing point from the bank. The bank will usually give me some sort of pricing point. So then I'll take my principal and interest payment times 12 and then divide that by whatever the purchase price of the note is plus any back taxes out. And that'll give me a rough ROI in the front end. Now, I want my rough ROI to be somewhere north of 20%, usually 20 to 30%, because if I'm having to use other people's money, I got some money costs. I got to go from that. Yep. Okay. Definitely. And that's just a front end. I mean, I can do due diligence on 100 assets in 5 minutes, because I'll take 100, cutting it down to 50, submit my initial bids to the bank. It may be a week I get it back. Out of the 50, they may have sold 10 or 20 already. And then I may only agree on 20, but that's 20 better versus just trying to make one, which is what a lot of people do. They look at their account like, oh, I got 50 grand in my account. I can only make an offer on this one asset. Well, you're only probably about a 10% close ratio on the front end. So if you only make an offer on one and it's gone, then you waste all this time. Me, I like to slap a lot against the wall. I control more. The banks would rather sell 20 notes to one guy versus one note to 20 guys. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it also gives me a bulk discount. And then I can also there's no earnest money usually. If I see something wrong with that property, the realtor drives by and it's a crack house, kill it. If I don't like the value, the bank says a value of 80 and my value comes back at 60 and they won't allow me to fade my bid or reduce my bid, we kill it. So that's the beautiful thing about notes is I can make a lot of offers and kill stuff that doesn't make sense. That also gives me time to raise capital and market at the same time too, versus a traditional fix and flipper who's got to have money, relatively quickly close in 7 days, and then go from there. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think it's a lot. It's like I'm drinking from a firing hose a little bit, but I do understand that in principle what you're talking about.
Well, just go back and listen to this episode in half speed, and it'll be perfect for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm waiting for another ding.
You got any more sounds back there? I love it.
Some people are doing this right now. They're going,
or like, what are you even saying?
I think it's good though, because the good thing is on the podcasting game, you can go back and listen to it. And I think people should go back, listen to that 10 times if you need to, because I know I will, in order to really comprehend it. Here's the thing. That's why I started a podcast called the Note Closer Show, 650 episodes.
I go through a lot of this stuff, a lot of what we talked about, and I might make up 20 episodes because I break each little section down in 30 minutes to an hour. I've got a book that people can download. I'll give you guys the link for that too. It's a 73-page book. I'm a big believer in talking in layman's terms and making it simple.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people that teach the note business that talk way over people's heads with terms. Look, the note business, it's, if you like movies, I'm assuming you guys do.
Yes, sir.
You've watched The Big Short with Steve Carell, go back and watch it again, or The Margin Call, or Too Big to Fail on HBO. You guys are, I think, baseball fans a little bit. Field of Dreams.
Yep, Field of Dreams.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's about it. But also Ray Consuelo was losing the family farm because he wasn't making mortgage payments, and his best friend's investors bought the note and were forcing foreclosure. So most people don't know that's a note story.
Got it. Very cool.
I should call it The Notebook.
So hang on a second.
Yeah, we got love it. We got to get one of those.
We 100% have to get one of those. You might have mentioned this already, but just a little short one here. Why only Texas and Florida for you?
Because I have my teams there and I know those markets like the back of my hand. And that's one thing. Never invest in a market that you don't do research in. I buy a lot in Ohio and Michigan, and I have really good people up there too. I mean, I've got some rentals in Flint and Detroit because fortunately I have good people that neck of the woods. So always know your team. It's still easy to jump on a plane these days and fly somewhere and meet with a realtor and drive around and get to know the market.
Maybe
that's
not
one of the
these
most
days, but
hey, Southwest is flying cheap, very cheap.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Where in Ohio?
You name it. I bought stuff here's the thing. I don't buy in Cleveland. Cleveland actually has enacted a ordinance where if you're buying a note and foreclose, you've got to bring the property up to current code. And that means replacing old windows and a lot of other things. And I don't want to do that. But
we almost bought property in Cleveland. Where we were in Cleveland, I was like, this ain't it. Like,
hopefully it's not Cleveland Heights, because Cleveland has some good neighborhoods and they have some crappy neighborhoods.
They have been Cleveland Heights.
Scott, we were in some war zones in Cleveland, like for sure. We were like, oh, this cash flow is $2,000 a month, and we're like, we're never gonna fill the property, so it's like it. But
and we're not there to even look at.
So here's the thing. Here's a good little thing we look at. Talking about systems, I look at rent rates just to know what the rent rates are. And anytime the rent rate falls below $500 a month for that unit or that property, it's a bad place. So like Columbus, Ohio, and I learned this from my buddy Dave Payerchin, who runs a big turnkey operation in Columbus, and he says anything below $500, you better go in with a flak jacket. It ain't just on a one gun; it's a 2-gun alley for the most part. So we look at that. So if it rents below $500, we kill it. It's not worth it.
We have a good friend, who's become a good friend, an investor out there, and he does really well in Cleveland and Columbus. And he buys in areas that he is familiar with. So we went into some areas that Ryan and I were like, we don't want to deal with this, and other areas where he thrives. So it's just good to know that, you're in that area where we know other people too.
So, I'm not a fan of Chicago. Chicago I call it Chirac or Crook County. Okay.
Well, there's parts of Philly that are like that too.
Yeah. Well, there is. Man, that's one of the most important things. If you're not comfortable in the neighborhood, walking down. I mean, I'll buy in Gary. And I've been shot at twice in Gary from knocking on doors before. But there's parts of every city, you got to know it. And here's the thing: don't buy a note on a property you don't want to end up owning at some point. Because if you do have to foreclose and take that property back, hey, then you've got an REO that you've got to move at some sort of fashion.
Yeah, that's
really good. That's a great rule of thumb. It's the same thing as like the reason why we didn't buy in Cleveland. It's like if we wouldn't feel comfortable living here, how are we going to raise rents? How are we going to hold it as a consistent asset? It's not going to appreciate. All those things, I think, it's very similar to
you don't even want to go meet the tenants at some point. You're like, come on.
Yeah.
So really quick, I know you mentioned the $500 threshold for checking rents. We typically use rentometer.com to check rents. What do you use? Is that your go-to?
I love the boys in Boston from Rentometer. So they're great.
Nice little shout out there.
You should reach out to them. They're always looking for podcasts to sponsor too.
Oh,
I didn't even know they're from Boston. That's
Scott, you're on something. Give me a little ding.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we got some. Give me some.
I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get. That's awesome. So I know we talked a little bit about the why behind notes, right? But I just want to get to know you a little bit more. And we talk about financial independence a lot.
Yep.
what does financial independence mean to you? And essentially, what are you trying to get out of life? I know you're doing a lot of different things with investing in notes. You're making more money by the day, networking, getting to know people, helping people. Like,
is there a stopping point for you?
Yeah,
or are you just,
oh yeah. So like if you're listening to podcasts, you can't see my background. It's like a picture of a Caribbean beach. At some point I want to end up in the Caribbean. You know what I mean? Somewhere sunny, my toes in the sand. I see myself doing podcast episodes in a white linen shirt, sunglasses, khaki shorts, and just, that's what I look at. I'm a workaholic. I don't think I'll ever stop working. I think when you get in real estate, you never retire. I think that's the biggest thing, And so as markets have changed, my numbers have changed. When I first started off, I wanted to buy 1,000 notes and modify 1,000 notes. Didn't think that would be happening. My goal is, and I think financial independence is different for everybody. It comes down to being able to do what you want when you want. In the words of John Goodman from The Gambler, if you got your house paid for and a couple million in the bank, you got FU money. You can do F off and do what you want. And I think that's what it comes down to. If you own your house and you're comfortable and you've got residual income that covers your expenses and allows for you to live the life that you wanted. If you want to, screw off for a month and go take a cruise, we've done that before.
Well, I was going to say, my assumption is that you have surpassed that and are trying to get to the next level of, because there are levels.
Financial freedom, I guess.
Yeah, you got independence is one thing, right?
Yeah.
Your expenses. Freedom is beyond the FU, or it's just like, you don't have to show up anywhere that you don't want to show up at any time. You can sleep till whenever, not that you would, but all of that. And that's the level. I mean,
here's the thing that frustrates me about 2020. I love traveling. We love taking trips. We love going to Europe. We love cruises. We've not been able to do that this year. Usually I'm traveling 30 to 50 times a year, whether I'm speaking or helping people or having fun. Right. And that's been the thing. So my cooking has increased. My gardening skills have gotten a lot better being here.
Saw
at
your
home.
Tomatoes. Nice.
They're very
nice.
good. Very
looking
nice.
Right.
Yeah, they are. Gotta love the aromas. Gotta love the aromas and the bell peppers. But anyway, when it comes, everybody's got different. If it's leaving the job you hate and it takes you $5,000 a month to set that up, that could be financial independence. I think what I love about the note business is it's kind of, if you can re-engineer your retirement account. I mean, you've all heard, like bankers and financial years, they'll say, oh, you need to have $4 million in the bank to retire, making 8% return to survive, or whatever that number is, right? Well, I've always looked at it as notes. Well, I don't need to put $2 million in the bank just to sit there. If I have 10 notes bringing in $500 a month on average, that's $5,000. That's a $60,000 a year income residually, whether I wake up or don't wake up today. You know what I mean? And so that's the way I've always looked at it. I don't have to do any work. Once I got them reperforming, most of the time they're going to pay, unless some sort of crazy pandemic or something weird happens. But you're going to have some people pay off, and then you take that money and go buy a new one. And it's like, you got to take advantage of when there's hay to be made. You know what I mean? And right now, my next level is we've got a fund that we're putting together to really tackle and buy a lot of smaller balance commercial stuff. We think that's the play in the next space, especially with hotels being hit so hard with pandemic. There's a lot of discounts taking place. And I think our goal is to buy a couple of these and turn them into short-term rentals by buying the debt at a discount, working with the operator to turn it around and either take over the property and manage it that way, or just, we buy it cheap enough that we can have the existing borrowers kind of get back on their feet and then resell it off in a couple of years after it's regentrified. So
I have two for you. One, you keep saying do you have a team that you work with, like a partner that you invest with?
I call myself, my significant other. Stephanie Goodman is my VP of operations. My significant, I could not do what I do without her keeping me out of trouble. And then that's why I say ours. And then I don't have kids that I know of. We've got the four.
It's your legacy hour. I get it.
Yeah.
Say no more. That's awesome. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but you did mention, and this, I'm not trying to jump way back, but you mentioned people redirect their IRA and redirect their retirement accounts into notes and honestly properties, mortgages, etc.
Yeah.
Say this is a hypothetical example. Just let me know your thoughts. Say someone has $100,000 in their retirement account, 401k.
Okay.
Do you suggest they continue investing 5-6% of their annual, cash flow into that retirement account based on what you were discussing before? Or do you suggest they redirect that into notes or another type of investment to diversify a little bit more?
So my ex-financial advisor in me will tell you, if your company is matching dollar for dollar or any percent, put that much in to max out your 401k. That's free money. So if they match you, dollar for dollar up to 3%, be putting 3% in. Okay. Because that's free money you wouldn't get otherwise. All right. Now, I wouldn't go above what they match because it's, you're being, it's with your 401k, it's pre-tax. You're going to have to pay tax on it. So it'd make more sense for you not to put extra in and start a Roth IRA, 250 or $6,000 a year into a self-directed Roth IRA that's tax-free because it's paid with money that's post-tax, money that's left over your paycheck. Right. And then you can use that Roth IRA to buy a note at 10 grand, get it reperforming and sell it for 40 grand. That 30 grand in profits, all tax-free growth. So everybody should have an IRA. If you've got a 401, great. There's a new provision out there though, that they do allow you, if you've got a 401k, you could actually, I think, pull up to 50% of your 401k and invest it in real estate or roll it into a traditional IRA, with a self-directed IRA custodian like Mid-Atlantic or Quest IRA or Equity Trust or anything like that.
Penalty free?
Yeah, because it's a transfer in kind. So yeah, no penalty. And then you're just going to be taxed on it, whether it's a traditional where it's pre-tax or if it's a Roth where it's post-tax. Now, a lot of people are taking their traditional IRAs and they're converting it to a Roth IRA and just paying the penalty on the front end because it's a smaller amount. Like if I'm going to take 50 grand and convert it to a Roth, then I would pay like a 20% penalty.
So down the line,
10 grand. But then all the profit I make is tax-free.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Essentially, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket down the line, so you do it up front.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Cool. Wow. So it sounds like if you want to learn about notes, and I want to learn. I mean, I think like we were saying, we have a good niche going.
We're about to have a book coming.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to learn about notes, Scott is your guy. So you already plugged the podcast. Where else can people find you? Like just in terms of gaining knowledge about notes.
So really easy. If you go to our main website, it's weclosenotes.com, and we've got a tremendous amount there. I teach classes on a regular basis. Once a month, I teach a one-day class called Note Weekend. It's $49. Your listeners, how about we do this? If they use the code JUICE, I'll cut it in half to 50% off. How's that sound?
You're the second person to use the code JUICE. Let's go. That's great. That's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's a one-day class. It's me teaching it live. The replays are included, but it's like 9 hours of how to find, fund, and flip notes. We talk about, it's like the cliff notes of note investing, as my students call it. But the website, weclosenotes.com, you'll find our podcast there. You'll find our classes and all sorts of resources to help you really learn more than anything else. And then we've got about 2,000 videos on YouTube if you want to go there and learn as well.
Excellent. And you did mention your book. What's the title?
How to buy real estate at 40% off, how to tap into the world of note investing. If you go to noteblueprint.com/free book, you can download the 73-page book. It's an easy read. I call it a bathroom book because you can sit there in one sitting if you need to.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good bathroom book? Come on.
Everyone does.
Who doesn't love a good bathroom book?
Yeah.
Scott, you hit us with a lot today, to say the least. I think your analogy was perfect. I feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose.
A little bit, just because if it's new to you, it sounds like this was the opening to what is note investing, the high level. This is what it does. This is what it can do for you. And then if you want to take the next step, Scott's your guy. Like, period.
100%. Right? It's a perfect segue into checking out all of his essentially educational platforms.
Yep.
And notes is not for everybody. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, notes is not for everybody. Some people, hey, you're more comfortable at bird dogging or wholesaling or fixing. Here's the thing. If you can qualify, one of the big things, if you can qualify for an FHL and go buy a fourplex and BRR that, or buy a fourplex and live and rent it out, that's a great way for wealth to do. If you're a VA, using a VA loan to do the same thing. There's so many ways to do investing. Just take the opportunity and go do something, everybody out there. And you guys are doing such a great job with the podcast. If you're listening to this, do me a favor, go on over and hit the subscribe button and make sure you leave a 5-star review for what these guys are doing. All right.
That is our guy, man. That is great. And you're so right. Before we
leave a review. Yes, I'm right. Leave a review.
Oh, that's true. No,
smash that subscribe button.
Smash it. But you're so right. Before we knew about real estate, we weren't good at what we do now. So whether I say we're drinking from a firing hose or not, it all takes that education up front. I don't know if I like note investing. I don't know enough about it yet to decide. It sounds really intriguing though. I think that's what other people are thinking. I don't know. If you knew from this podcast, then you probably already knew about note investing before, because it's going to take that runway of time for people to understand what the hell.
Exactly. It is different. The best thing you can do is, as new real estate investors, is go join your local RIA club, your local meetup groups, and network with people there. There are note investing is a much smaller niche of people out there. I mean, there's a guy in Philly, Dave Van Horn, who runs a fund of their PPR. There's some other people up in the neck of the woods that we've worked with. They're note investors, and look, just go Google note investing. There's a lot of information. Sink your teeth into it. Never buy something without getting educated first. And that's the most important thing. I've seen people buy a note because they thought they were doing something right, and they overpaid or bought something that they didn't own at all. So get educated and learn and go from there.
Last drop.
Yeah, let's do it. You kind of already
did it, but let's throw it at him.
It can be a little selfish. It's all right.
Yeah.
So you want to take it away? Yeah.
Last segment of the show is called The Last Drop. You've squeezed all the juice out, but we do have one more. We do have one last drop. And what we typically ask is for our guest to give our listeners a tool, an app, some sort of, maybe a book would be good for this episode.
Essentially a resource.
A resource that they can take away if they want to get into note investing. You have Scott is your guy for that, but maybe there's something that got you started before you became the educator.
So the common book I think a lot of people will say is Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a great book. It's great. Robert Kiyosaki, I had a chance to meet him. And then the co-author is a lady by the name of Sharon Lechter, who's phenomenal. Okay. Sharon rewrote a book by the Napoleon Hill Foundation. You probably heard of Think and Grow Rich, right? Yes. Another great book you had to read. But Napoleon Hill wrote a book in 1938 called Outwitting the Devil, where it was basically him having a conversation with the devil about how the devil is so successful at keeping people from achieving results. And part of what the devil says in the book is that he distracts us. He allows us to drift. He throws distraction at us, shiny object syndrome, the squirrel syndrome that keeps us from being focused. And so the Napoleon Hill Foundation gave the manuscript to Sharon back a few years ago. She didn't really rewrite it. She kept the book pretty much the same and then added inserts of what she thought Napoleon Hill would think of in today's world. So Outwitting the Devil, it is one of my top 3 or 4 books. It talks about the focus. If you really want to be successful in life, don't drift, but be very focused. Learn to say no, and you'll be a lot more successful instead of saying yes to everything. And that has probably been one of the most impactful books in my life, because I found when I did say no, I was able to be a lot more focused. I found success a whole lot faster instead of watering down my message or my actions. And I think that's really what everybody needs to do. The same thing in the note business. I've squeezed down so I know my focus of what exactly I'm looking for versus trying to make everything fit into my investment strategy. And that's not the case in any type of strategy out there. So
I agree. I think if you spread yourself too thin, you'll find yourself being maybe you're mediocre at all at all these things. And even if you get to the mediocre level, that means that you're okay. And like, if you want to be really good at one thing, again, there's so many ways to make money in real estate.
Yeah.
Focus on maybe notes is your thing. So cool.
Perfect.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? I don't know where you're most active, if it's social media, or if whatever information you'd like to give out.
It's easy. If people want to connect with me and pick my brain, I'm always glad to do that. You can always go to talkwithscottcarson.com. That'll get you right in my calendar, pick a 30-minute spot. And I'm always glad to talk notes and real estate or podcasting with anybody out there. So talkwithscottcarson.com is a way to connect with me the easiest way.
Perfect. And I will just plug the Instagram pages that he has as well. So you can find the Note Closers Show podcast at Note Closers. And if you want to find Scott, you can find him at One Scott Carson, at One Scott Carson.
At One Scott Carson, Instagram, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. So.
And Instagram.
And Instagram.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for coming on. You have shifted, like you put something in my head that says I got to at least check this out and say what
broadened our horizons for sure.
Definitely.
I think it's definitely an avenue we can discuss and think about pursuing. I'm super intrigued. So Scott, thank you for dropping some knowledge on us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here, guys. Looking forward to having you guys on my show.